A Caribbean sustainable development expert is calling for stronger focus on renewable energy sources amid the global fallout from ongoing conflict in the Middle East. Professor Anthony Clayton argues the focus on renewables should not be allowed to fade even after the current war ends. Giovanni Dennis reports.
As these strikes and counter-strikes increase, so will the cost of fuel and just about everything else. Professor Emeritus of Caribbean Sustainable Development Anthony Clayton says the increased price of fuel caused by epic fury, the United States, Israel and Iranian conflict highlights the importance of renewable energy sources for Jamaica. Gas prices have increased sharply due to the current conflict in the Middle East. But Professor Clayton says interest in renewable energy needs to be sustained.
What we tend to do is we panic about the transition to renewables every time there's an event like this, and every time the price of oil spikes. And then after the crisis, the sense of urgency seems to disappear again. And this is no basis for an energy policy. We really need a long-term, sustained approach if we're going to make a transition to a much more energy-efficient economy and one based on renewables.
He says Denmark is an example of one country that started its transition to renewable energy in the 1970s after the 1973 oil crisis. More than 50% of Denmark's energy needs now comes from wind and solar.
And they have become a major energy exporter to the rest of Europe. Their energy grid is now about 10 times more stable than the energy supply in the United States because they have built in efficiency and renewables at every opportunity. That's what we should have been doing. Of course, we should respond to the crisis. Of course we must. But really, the only way to get there is to be consistent and to push in the same direction for as long as it takes.
In the meantime, Jamaica has set a target of having 50% of its energy supply coming from renewable energy by 2030. Professor Clayton says it's an ambitious target.
If we get even close to that, I think that would be really quite remarkable. That's about where Denmark is, but Denmark took about 50 years to get there. So if we can really achieve that by 2030, that would be nothing short of really remarkable, quite astonishing.
However, he says, with the cost of technology having fallen significantly, renewable energy has become much more accessible.
We've been arguing for years that with sufficient investment in renewable energy technology, they should be price competitive. And the transition should be driven by the economics of the situation. Well, now that is actually true. And in about 30 countries in the world now, renewable energy technology is in fact the cheapest source of electricity.
Professor Clayton was speaking on CVM's News at Noon. Giovanni Dennis, CVM News.